something in me was telling me this is not the right thing to do with little kids.
We're disconnected from the power of the mind to calm the mind, to center yourself, to prepare yourself mentally, all this sort of stuff. Meditation. So you don't like that.
Have families practice mindfulness as a lifestyle, not just another chore.
Parenting's tough. When you've got kids, you learn so much about yourself.
I'm perfectly imperfect.
Apologizing to your kids can be quite a powerful step to them understanding you and learning lessons.
When your mind starts to wander, being with your child and knowing that they're having a hard time to really understand, okay, this is the little window I have, trying to voice your opinion, and they would say, no, you cannot do this, or why can I do this? Because I say so. A lot of parents think their child is doing this on purpose. There is another way, a healthier way to respond to your children.
The reality there is, if you want to be a good parent, focus on being a good person.
The brain stops developing at 25.
I've just had a great conversation with Dr. Sandy Zanella. Today we talk all about mindfulness. What is mindfulness? What does it mean to be present? And how can that improve the mental health of our young children? We talk about practical ideas and concepts and exercises and activities that you as a parent can implement at home to help your child feel more calm and more present. This is a really, really important conversation, which I know is going to help so many parents, so make sure you don't miss this one.
So welcome, Sandy, to the Warrior Academy podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm excited to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I've seen your content online, and it's a lot of what you do really aligns with our message here at the Warrior Academy, especially around the kind of holistic nature in terms of how you help young people with mental health. So really excited to talk with you about that. And for anyone who doesn't know who you are, tell us a little about you and who you are and what you do.
So I'm Sandy. I am a doctor, a physician by training, but I decided to take a more holistic approach into mental health. I was working at the Brain Research Institute in UCLA, and we were treating patients from young age, like 6 years old, with sleeping disorders, with anxiety, and we were treating them with pills. The first thing, it was giving them the pill, and then if they weren't improving, we would increase the dose. So I was not a mom, I was not even married then, but something in me was telling me this is not the right thing to do with little kids, with adults, but also like with children. Then fast forward, I got pregnant, and I was like, if my children ever experience anxiety or depression, I don't want them to start like their mental health journey with pills or with medication. So I decided to take this holistic approach. I went into yoga, mindfulness, and everything related to holistic ceremonies and practices.
Wow. So the switch for you happened while you were working as a doctor.
Yes.
So you were working as a doctor, and the first kind of immediate response to any challenge that a child had in the States, right?
Yeah,
in the US,
yeah.
was to medicate them with some sort of pill.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was the research. So we were trying to link sleeping disorders with diabetes.
Right.
And anxiety with diabetes or chronic diseases like hypertension in children. So in order to see what is the outcome if you treat the sleeping disorder or their anxiety, if the chronic disease would improve, it was giving them medication. So it was... For me, I didn't know anything about holistic. I never practiced yoga before. It was just something in me that said, no, there should be another way. There should be somewhere else, something else. Especially sometimes you don't really need to go. I mean, there's medication that really helps people, for sure. I'm not saying medication is wrong in every situation, but you could start with other practices to help them and to just in your daily life.
I think there's so much that we're so disconnected, right?
Yeah.
So, I look at the solutions that the modern world has for so much of what we do, and it seems like we're disconnected from the power of the mind. We don't understand the balance between the mind and the body, how there's a psychosomatic response, and the things that we think and feel to them, and the kind of physical representation of that, right? How we express that.
Yeah.
And so, I wonder if it's what you saw with this in the States. Is this very unique to the US, or have you seen it in other countries as well?
Yeah, everywhere. When I was in Mexico, it was the same. When I was rotating in psychiatry, it's the same. Everything is medicine, everything. And especially, I don't know if now how it is, because I moved here 3 years ago, but before it was like all this like meditation and yoga. It had this skepticism or this like religious attached to it. Like if some people, they don't know what it is and they are afraid of trying it because they think like something cosmic is going to like come, so it's like they're afraid, but there's also there's no awareness on how could it help you if you meditate, if you practice anything. That even martial arts, it has that mindfulness into practicing. So there's so many ways. Every time I talk to parents, it's like there's not just one thing. Meditation is it's not just sitting down. You could do formal or informal. Informal is through the sports, through dancing, through coloring. So this is what I think we lack of, the awareness or the information that I'm not expecting your child to sit for 10 minutes still, because that's not going to happen, or even a mom or a dad. Like it's not going to happen, and it's not the way if you don't want to do it like that.
Yeah. That awareness piece is really interesting. When I started the Warrior Academy 13 years ago, 2010, 2011, I drew a lot of my experiences having spent about a year and a half training and fighting in Thailand.
Oh yeah.
And obviously with the Buddhist culture there, you go to the temple to pray before you do your fight, and there's elements of religion within the culture, but when it comes to the martial arts side of things, that mindfulness and meditation is kind of key to calm the mind, to center yourself, to prepare yourself mentally, all this sort of stuff. And so I learned a lot of lessons from there. I had an amazing Buddhist teacher. I'm not Buddhist, but I had an amazing Buddhist teacher I was learning from. And he was teaching me so much about meditation and calming the mind and staying present and all this sort of stuff from a young age. And so I remember when I came back to the UK and I started creating the Warrior Academy.
Yeah.
And I would phone up schools and I would talk about our program, talk about the holistic nature of our program. And a lot of these schools would be Protestant schools, Christian schools, and they would be like, well, first of all, we don't like fighting. And I'll be like, well, it's not about fighting. Yeah. There's mindfulness, there's meditation. Meditation? That's religious. So we don't like that. And it was like, that's a Buddhist thing, right? So, but now, 10 years later, I see the same schools kind of promoting the fact that they teach their kids meditation. But it's interesting for us because meditation's been like a cornerstone of our program for over a decade now. If you come here to the Warrior Academy, you might have a 5-year-old with ADHD, but to get their first belt with us, they have to show that they can sit down and do breathing for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Initially they're struggling like this, and they're looking around, they got one eye open, they kind of look around the room. Yeah. And after a while, it's incredible to see. We teach them to use their breathing, to focus on the present moment, and they're just in this calm state. And it's something I've been using with my own kids to teach them how to deal with difficult situations when they hurt themselves or when they are anxious or whatever it is, right? And so that holistic approach is so key for us, that I can completely understand the awareness side and how religion comes into it. Yeah. And people are worried about it for that reason, right?
Yeah, even when COVID started, I was like, okay, I'm going to just do free Zoom sessions for children, because a lot of people were writing me and saying like, oh, my kids are showing signs of anxiety. I was like, okay, let's just do Zoom, like yoga sessions every week. And I would do it with 100 people or stuff like that. But with the Spanish speakers, I was living in LA, and with the Spanish speakers, I would have just like 3, 4, 5. So in LA, of course, LA is more like healthy and everything. So yeah, they are more open, but still there's a lot of cultures in the US also. So it's hard to like make or help them understand that this is beneficial for children and for parents. And what you were saying about the children like sitting still, I think as adults, we kind of like rob them this nature state of mindfulness, because if you see any child and you're walking from your car to the school, they will stop and grab the rock and be mindful with the rock. But it's us that we start like hurrying them up and saying like, okay, let's go. And we have to hurry. We have to go to the doctor. So this is when you are aware of the benefits, then you can say, okay, 1 minute, I'll just have them here, be with the rock, feel the weight, feel its temperature, like is it rough, is it soft? So this way they can just do it on a daily basis, like as a lifestyle, which is my goal, is to have families practice mindfulness as a lifestyle, not just another chore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just a case of bringing it into the normal life, like a normal routine, and the way you speak to kids, the way their daily habit goes, the way they approach different things as they go. But that requires a lot of consistency from parents, and then that requires an education piece from the parents. They've got to understand it and believe it and understand what mindfulness is and how that works. But when I look at going back to the whole first round of care for children and people tending to be medication.
Yeah.
I'd like to know your opinion on why you think that is. I think from my perspective, there's two main reasons why we medicate kids as soon as there's a problem. Number one is it's easier. It's easier to just give a child the paracetamol instead of giving them the techniques to calm themselves and to lower their stress or whatever it is. And number two, I think there's a lot of money in pharmaceutical companies, right? And so they want to sell these products. And so, even within, insurance companies, insurance providers, the healthcare system. And so I think without a doubt, that has an influence on how we then look after our kids.
Yeah, and it has even, I would say, a third one, that doctors they have kind of like a commitment to how many medications are they going to give in a week.
So in the US, they have to give a certain amount.
So doctors, we have like a certain amount of like patients we have to see in an hour, and medications we have, depending with the contract of the pharmaceutical, how many medications, and this goes into what rewards am I getting as a doctor from the pharmaceutical.
No.
If I'm getting invited to, I think I'm not getting into it.
You got to name drop all the different.
But if I'm getting invited to a congress, like an event maybe in Europe, right? It depends on how many medications I sold. It depends. Am I going in business class? Am I going in tourist class?
So your job as a doctor, the success or failure of your job as a doctor isn't actually about treating people and healing people. It's a big part of it is selling drugs.
I mean, I do have friends and I do know doctors who are truly committed to this rapport of patient-doctor connection, and they're really interested in this. But there's also this, they take it as a business, and the more you're earning, the more your ego grows, and then you're looking for more money, and so then you fall into this other side. I think it's more your ethical side. There is no black and white, like there's also like
really interesting. I grew up with the NHS, so my mum was in the NHS, the National Health Service in England, so government run, it's paid through for your tax, all this sort of stuff. Everyone complains all the time about the NHS, but in England they're very good at complaining about most things, especially the weather. But one of the things I'll say is that the NHS, the actual staff work incredibly hard, and with the few resources they've got, they do an incredible job. And so coming here then was my first kind of insight into what private healthcare was like, without that kind of welfare behind it. And so, this was really eye-opening to me when I started to realize actually this is a business, and everyone you walk into a hospital or a clinic or whatever, people are making money out of you straight away, and so you don't have that same feeling with a government-run welfare state, right? And so those issues that you saw in the US, have you seen that here as well, or?
I think they're also under a lot of pressure because, at least I don't know the back story, but I do see that the time they have with each patient is like 10 minutes. So I'm assuming it's the same situation where they're like asking, you have to see this certain amount of patients in 1 hour. So you have to like do everything faster and not really connect and hear your patient. Because now if you complain, if you're going to the eye doctor and then you say, oh, I have like sore throat, they will immediately send you to family or general practitioner. Whereas before they could help you, but now everything is really, okay, this is my area and I'm not even looking into that. I feel like they're also kind of lazy to think outside the box. Everything is like, okay, follow this protocol and that's it.
Wow.
If we find it.
It's so different, right, to like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when the family doctor would visit your home.
Everything,
The family doctor would come with his like briefcase and stethoscope, and that would be the one doctor the whole family sees. Now it's 10 minutes, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Really, really interesting. So what's the solution here? The solution is to have this holistic approach, but we can't rely on our environment to provide us that, right? We can't rely on the local clinic or the government hospital or the doctor we visit to give us that understanding of you can actually solve a lot of these ailments you've got holistically by looking within rather than looking at the medication.
Yeah.
So the responsibility then lies with us,
Yeah.
which I guess this is where your passion, your work comes in, the education
Yeah.
to parents and to kids on how to solve some of those challenges they've got. And a lot of that comes down to mindfulness, right?
Yeah. And also another thing with education and with the main issue is like sometimes even parents, they don't want or they're not interested in learning. I have moms that told me like, okay, can you just teach my nanny how to do this, you know? So I feel this needs to be a family situation. Everybody, yes, it's important that also the nanny learn this, but you as a mom or as a dad, you should be involved too in these dynamics that is going to help everyone. It's not just your child. It's not just fix my child.
Yeah.
It's everyone. So everyone has their tools to navigate any challenges that you're going to have in your family.
I think that's so key, isn't it? It's something that requires the whole family to lead. In the Warrior Academy, we call it leaning in.
Yeah.
I was on Dubai Eye Radio the other day, and I was asked by Hello Farmer, have you ever turned away kids who you didn't think were the right fit? I said, I've never turned away a child, but I have turned away parents. And I think the parents were listening to that thinking, oh, you can't turn us away, but I have, and I will. If a parent comes here and they're not willing to learn, they're not willing to take on the information and lean into our philosophy and our values and our program, then 80% of what we teach the child will go.
Yeah.
That they've got to solidify those lessons at home, right? And so, you know, I feel like our kids, they copy what we do more than they listen to what we say.
It's modeling. It's in every situation with parenting is modeling. Whatever you want, it's if you want your child to start meditating, when mothers ask me like, how can I get my children into yoga, start yourself.
Just do it.
Feel the benefits.
Yeah.
And then you will know, and then they will join because they join in anything that you do. So, for me, this is not a chore, that it's something that you have to do. Okay, now it's time to do 10 minutes of yoga, at least in the beginning. So it's more about like, okay, then let's do this as a family. And when they see you start, and then when I'm very vocal with my children about like, okay, I'm feeling frustrated. I will take a step back and I will just take a deep breath. So this way they know that, okay, mom, first of all, she's feeling, she's having emotions and it's normal. She's not perfect. So this is validating also their emotions whenever they feel overwhelmed. And then, okay, she's taking a step back because we know that if she doesn't do this, then she might yell or she might, do something later I will regret. So then they will see me and they join. And now my children are like, okay, mom, take a deep breath or stuff like that.
They'll remind you.
Yeah, and they're like better at
maybe take a step back.
Yeah. So
I think that's so key. I think that we forget as parents that, on one hand, parents feel like they should be superheroes, right?
Yeah.
And never show any weakness to their children. But I really disagree. I think that we need to show our kids that we're going through something difficult and they can actually see that. But the important thing there is not to go through it and then, I'm going through something difficult, that's it. But to go through it and show them how will you deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you never show them the process of that, then when they become adults, they get to the point where they've never seen someone go through it, but they're experiencing it.
Yeah.
So adult life just hits them with full force and they don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
But seeing mum or dad, take a moment back, just breathe for a minute and then come back in a calm way. I think that's a really, really key lesson, and parenting's tough, and it's like it tests you and it triggers you. And the things that, when you've got kids, you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah.
You learn about the things that you never thought about yourself, the things that triggered you deep down and why that is. And you start to ask yourself so many questions. There's a lot of deep introspective work with parenting. I heard something the other day, and it was, if you're finding parenting hard, it's because you're a good parent.
Mm-hmm.
If you find it easy, you're probably not.
Yeah, you are definitely.
Like you're not leaning in enough to actually that kind of self-growth aspect, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's hard, but I'm really happy because now there's more like information, there's more. As parents, we have a lot of tools, and there's a lot of pressure, of course. Social media. As parents, we see like only the highlight reels of other parents somewhere else in the world. But at the same time, if we know how to use this content in a smart way, and know that I think it's very important to have self-compassion and really know there's these 3 steps of self-compassion, which is the first one is mindfulness, self-kindness, and then common humanity, which I think is very important because it's what makes us understand that it's not just me that I'm dealing with this situation. It's the humanity that all parents go through. Like all parents don't know what to do when the child is not sleeping or picky eating or stuff like this. So I think it is very important to sit down and think like, okay, I'm not the only one, and I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect because this will show my kids that if I'm not perfect, I'm fine. I'm perfectly imperfect. Like this is something that I want my children to know, and all kids, that it's okay. It's okay. And an important thing in parenting is the repair. It's okay if I get mad, because I will get mad. Even if everybody asks me, do you get mad? Like, do you? I do. Like, of course I do. I'm not like, but it's for me, the important part of this challenge is the repair. When I go to my children and say, okay, I completely screwed up. Like, I scream at you and I know I shouldn't have, but I was feeling frustrated. I'm doing things to become better at this. I'm going to do more meditation. And I just like problem solve with them. And I show them that I apologize, and I'm taking these steps that they will use with their relationship, with their friends in the future, with their partners or with their own children, that this is normal. Like it's the way of.
I think that's a bit like any leadership role. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people look at leadership and they say you should never apologize, and that you're an authority, so you can't really apologize. Otherwise, you lower your position in the group or whatever.
Yeah,
right? And that's kind of the underlying tone. But I think when you are a leader, being authentic, admitting when you don't say wrong, and say, look, screw that up, gonna improve. These are the steps I'm gonna do to do that. Let's move on. That's something that's very human about that, and I think that then develops trust as well. And I think sharing that with your kids is really quite key. Apologizing to your kids can be quite a powerful step to them understanding you and learning lessons from you, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, what's our job as parents is just to prepare our kids for adult life, ultimately.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, as difficult as it is, it's like this process of letting go and letting your kids grow up into their own, and so, and no one really wants to realize that, but as a parent, literally all you're doing every day is teaching your kids how to live without you.
Yeah.
And, mums hate that when I say that. It's like, I look at my wife and my son, and I'm like, it's the world's slowest breakup.
Yeah, it is.
But it's kind of, my role, a lot of it is to help with that empowerment and trying to help him, do things without her. And, her role is very nurturing and trying to bring that back in. And so there's that balance between the two of us, right? And so it's building that authenticity and trust by showing them the struggles you're going through.
Yeah.
Apologizing when you do slip up, and then guiding them after that, showing them how to respond to challenges, right?
Yeah. And I think this is something very important also on the way they relate to their siblings, because of course there's the rivalry and all these things, and when there's a fight, you see as a family, even with me and my husband, we do have arguments, and I think it's healthy for them to see that we disagree. Of course, not to the level of screaming. Like, you have to be like really conscious about how you're showing how you disagree with your husband. But to us, it's like, even our kids, like the other day, I don't know what we were talking about, and then we started like arguing, and my son, my 6-year-old, was like, okay, who's gonna apologize first? Like, they know.
Oh, he said that.
And we were like, not.
So your 6-year-old son said, right, who's going to apologize first?
Yeah, no, like, not me. It's hard for us, but they know.
It's funny. There you go. Kids are the best teachers.
Yeah, they are.
One of my instructors recently is having a child scene. I said to him, when the student is ready, the master will appear. Right?
Exactly.
Your kids are going to teach you a lot more than you realize, and so it's funny how that works. So let's talk about mindfulness and how the kind of practical application of that with parenting at home and raising kids. What are the give me the foundation of what mindfulness actually means to begin with.
Yeah, so mindfulness means being present in the moment without judgment of anything. If you are being here and now, not thinking in the future or in the past, like maybe I had an argument with someone, or in the future I have this deadline. You are in the present without thinking about this and without judging yourself for thinking or for feeling something. If you're feeling anxious, you're not saying, I'm always anxious, I'm the worst. You're just not judging yourself, and you are here. It's hard and it's not perfect. A lot of people think that when they practice mindfulness through meditation, it's like they have this misconception of, oh, my mind needs to be completely blank and not thinking about anything. But actually, mindfulness is when your mind starts to wander and going to, okay, I have to go to the supermarket. And that moment when you catch this thought and bring it back, anchor it through breathing or through just using your senses, this is the mindfulness essence. Like when you bring that thought and just say, okay, this is time to just be still and focus on here and now. So it's more about, it takes practice, but it's something that the more you do it, it's like a muscle, you know, like the more you practice, the stronger it gets and the easier it will get. Before, maybe you can just sit down for 30 seconds. Even 1 minute a day it's good.
Yeah.
So it's
I think it's got that ability to calm you down, right? I often find myself being very future focused. I think a lot of driven people are, that, you know, what they're looking into the future because they like building things. I like building things, whether it's a business or a charity or a family, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the future all the time. And so, you know, I've done so many things in my life which have forced me to be very present, whether it was martial arts or extreme sports or skydiving or whatever it is. I used to do a lot to try and keep me very present. And so when you're doing something extreme, you're not thinking about your emails, or you're not thinking about the next goal or whatever. You're just thinking about that one thing.
Yeah.
And obviously meditation is one way of doing that. And, you know, but like you say, it's not so much about being completely clear of thought.
Yeah.
It's about being very present with thoughts, not future focused, i.e., the fear of what could go right or wrong in the future, the imagination of what could go right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
And it's not past focused where you're like, you know, I feel guilt or shame about what has happened, or maybe I could change this, or I wish that didn't happen, or sad about something in the past. It's just being completely present. And I think that's very related to peace. You know, if you look at what peace is for a lot of people, it's like the absence of any strong emotion. There's no super strong positive emotion, which is kind of like a eustress, and there's no strong negative emotion, obviously, which is de-stress. It's like, it's the absence of any strong pulling emotion. And to do that, you need to be in a state of presence, I think.
Yeah. And in parenting, it's also not judgmental of your children, because sometimes we tend to think, oh, he's so this, and we start tagging them. It's just being with your child and knowing that they're having a hard time, and that's it. You don't have to justify their feeling or their emotion. It's just connecting and knowing that it's not you or them. It's just their development and the way you are learning. And again, going back to self-compassion, like to really know that it's you're also, as a parent, you're learning how to be a parent, because nobody gave us, now we have more information, but nobody really gave us like this training on how to become a parent. So in mindful parenting is this, the benefit is that the more you practice, the easier it will be for you to recognize when you're getting triggered, and to really understand, okay, this is the little window I have to really take that step back and breathe or do a meditation before I react in a way. It's responding in a healthy way, whereas without mindfulness, you will be reacting.
So the first thing there is understanding what triggers you.
Yeah.
Well, all the red flags, or, you know. So can you give me some examples of those that parents typically have?
Yeah, for example, if your parents didn't pay attention to you when you were little and you were trying to voice your opinion, and they would say, no, you cannot do this, or why can I do this? Because I say so. So kind of like you felt neglected on your emotions, and that there was nobody really taking care of you. Now, as a parent, you have your child that you're telling them, okay, put on your shoes. And your child is just playing and the dinosaur, and another time, put on your shoes, we're leaving. And it's not that they don't want, a lot of parents think their child is doing this on purpose, or they're trying to, show their power. And then by the third time, you start getting agitated because, okay, this child is not listening to me. But in reality, it's your own 6-year-old who were not like, you didn't feel listened by your parents. So this is now you at 6 years old. This is not you at 36, 40 or whatever. It's this 6 years old that felt neglected by their parents. And now this child is triggering you. This emotion is going way back to that moment. So a way of like understanding how to find your trigger is really sitting down and connecting with that. Okay, so you can log and write down, this triggers me today. What happened? Okay, my child didn't want to pick up their shoes. How did I react? Okay, I scream at them because this is the first thing you do, or your first reaction. And then the more you write, maybe the next day, what did I do? I didn't do anything because I don't have the tools. But now that you have the tools, now you can, the next day you will say, okay, I tried to take a deep breath. It didn't work, but you're trying, and you're creating this habit of understanding that there is another way, a healthier way to respond to your children when they are doing something that is challenging you or triggering you in a sense that you cannot.
So it's almost like this awareness.
Yeah, it's self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's understanding.
But you mentioned some practical steps as well, like writing down.
Yeah,
That's helpful.
It is very helpful because then you are really connecting with this feeling. It's not that, okay, I'm feeling, but sometimes we feel it. We don't even pay attention to what we feel. I feel angry, but what else?
Yeah.
Where do you feel in your body? Is it like your palms are sweating? Are your palms sweating? And are your cheeks feeling red? Is your heart racing? Maybe your stomach is like, you're feeling, with children, I like to say, like, are you feeling butterflies, like something in your stomach? You're clenching your jaw. These things that we normally don't pay attention when we get angry or frustrated. It's like the more we practice and you write it down, and how did it feel in my body? Where? And every time you do it, you go back to this log, and then okay, whenever I feel angry, most of the times I feel like my palms are sweating. So next time you're gonna pay attention to your palms, and if your palms are sweating, you know that you are about to explode and you're about to scream, or whatever your reaction is with your children. So this is a very important part of mindfulness, to not just being aware of your emotions, but your sensations in your body. And this is a little window I'm talking about, like, okay, now my heart is racing. This is the time I have to take a step of whatever is going on. My child, as long as they're safe, nothing's going to happen if I just take 1 minute to take a deep breath and then come back. Because usually why we want to correct our children is because of the fear of the future.
Right.
If I don't correct him now, she's going to become a bully. Or because she's hitting her sibling. If I don't do it now, then they don't pick up their mess right now, then she's going to be messy her whole life. Or it's this
future
overthinking.
We're not in the present. And even a lot of the time I feel when parents are parenting, they want to stop. Imagine your kids are screaming or whatever, arguing. It's almost too overwhelming for us, and therefore we want to remove them from that. But it's not for them, it's for us.
Yeah, it's for us.
Like, they're in that moment going through that. And so we're like, right, go and sit on the step or go to your room or whatever it is. We're not actually removing the child from that, we're removing ourselves from it by moving the child physically somewhere else.
Yeah.
But sometimes, a child needs to be removed from that situation. One of the things we do at home is, if I got the two kids arguing, shouting, rather than sending one to their room because they've reached the third warning or whatever, I'll go with them and I'll just sit in the room with them.
Yeah.
So rather than being alone, they've got me there and I'll work on breathing with them. Mm-hmm. But it's really difficult as a parent to remember that when you're triggered and, when you're annoyed or whatever it is. And so I think there's that element of awareness. And one of the things I always focus on is trying to be less reactive. And I think that in everything in life, I think that if you can extend the time from which something happens, whether it's bad or good, to how you respond, try and increase that gap or the decision you've got to make. Whether that's sleeping on a big decision rather than make a decision then and there and being reactive, or, having some sort of strong emotion. Because the reality is, like anything in life, you don't necessarily need to send that email straight away. And that strong word of email, you could wait till tomorrow morning to send it, so removing yourself from a reactive point of view makes such a difference. Because sometimes you need that moment just to kind of give yourself time to process your emotions, why you're triggered, where that triggering comes from. And then you can actually, attack it in a very healthy way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even that we think it's society makes us think that we have to be multitasking and we have to be hustling every day. And so we think we cannot keep up to this level of hustling. And it's where I think also in parenting, a lot of like mothers or stay-at-home dads or parents who are really involved, it's where they start comparing, because it's this, okay, she's always going to the classes and the best costume and best dress and everything. So it's this society makes us think that if I don't send this email, I'm lazy. I don't want to work. I don't want to, I'm not ambitious enough. So I think it is a lot about social media and how we grew up. If we center our worthiness in how productive we are, how busy we are, not even productive, it's how busy you are. Sometimes you can be productive. This is what I tell when I go corporate. Like, you're telling me you don't have 5 minutes because you could use these 5 minutes instead of like meditating to send I don't know how many emails. But in reality, if you meditate or do mindfulness for 5 minutes, your brain is going to get more oxygen, you're going to be more focused, and you're going to be more capable of not just sending this certain amount of emails, but exactly, more productive, like getting a better response because you are relaxed, your nervous system is calmed down, and you are more connected to if you're in a business interview or anything. So it's investing in a smarter way, your timings and your...
That word busy, I really hate that word busy. I feel like we use it so often, even when we're not. And it's almost like a badge of honor, right? You walk, I don't know if it's just a British thing, but we're very much like, how's your day? Busy day? And another busy day. Oh, good.
Oh, good,
Good, well done, good, good. Well, good to be busy, better to be busy. Busy, like this, But maybe it's a US thing and a Mexican thing as well.
Everyone is like, I'm busy. I am important.
Busy doing what? A busy fool. Productive should be the word, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we can be so busy and get nothing done.
Yeah, exactly. You could, you could be busy just not doing anything. So.
Yeah, it's so true. It's interesting when you look at it that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell me then, in terms of your work now, you're working with parents, you're working with kids. How are you helping parents develop this kind of mindful approach to their parenting, but also through the kind of practical exercises?
Yeah. So I do workshops for parents in mindful parenting, like in a way that they understand like the first steps of what mindfulness is and how can they implement in their house in an easy way. I also have I'm going to develop like this membership next year so I can do work with them with meditations and with things that I know work for me, like journaling with my children, doing yoga with my kids, like, having all these options. Maybe you don't want to meditate today, but maybe you want to journal, or maybe you want to do yoga with your children, or you want to do yoga by yourself, but it's just knowing that there is an option for you, whether it right now maybe you feel like, okay, right now my glass is like depleted, I don't have energy anymore, like I need to do yoga just for me, but then maybe tomorrow you can do it with your children. So it's just giving parents the options of taking care of themselves, but also connecting with their families whenever they need it. So I do a lot of events here. I go to schools to talk about the benefits of parenting, mindful parenting, the benefits of you taking care of yourself, how it's going to show up with your children, how you're going to show up when you are rested, when your nervous system is calmed down. Because even we have these mirror neurons that you don't even need to talk, but whatever you're feeling and your face is telling, and your kids are going to, these mirror neurons imitate when they're looking. So you don't even need to say anything to them. Because they're like very good at noticing when you're mad, when you're sad, when you're angry, even before us. So when our mirror neurons detect someone else in the good and the bad, when they're happy or when they're always seeing my mom is always stressed, then you are passing this anxiety.
Yeah.
You are passing this stress, and then your child starts to go into elementary school or high school, and all this stress plus the stress they get like academic and peer pressure and social media, then it's just going to increase, and they will never find this peace, not at home or not in school.
It's really interesting now. I think one of the best piece of advice I could give a new dad or a new mum would be anything that you think upsets you or triggers you, try and look into before you have kids.
Yeah.
Because it's magnified the second you do, right? It's, you've got your normal life, but then your life is kind of feeling like it's secondary to someone else's life now, and now you've got to work with this. And so, it's amazing how when we look at what it means to be a good parent, it's so much more than just saying do this or do that. It's like kids mirror everything we do, like you said. And so the reality there is, if you want to be a good parent, focus on being a good person.
Yeah.
If you want your kids to be stress-free, focus on being stress-free yourself.
Yeah.
If you want your kids to be more present or, to have more peace in their lives, then focus on that with your own life. And subtly, your kids will grow into this, young adult who is able to process their emotions and to calm themselves down and to feel more presence in their life.
Yeah, even with confidence, a lot of parents are very worried about I want my children to be confident. But it's just when you have a mom who is always complaining about their weight or their hair or focusing a lot on
insecurities.
Yeah, exactly. So then you have a girl who's going to be she looks up to you, and then she looks like you're always like going to the scale and how much, like all these little things that we don't pay attention, but they are looking.
Yeah.
And with children, it's like now the statistics of anxiety and depression are at the highest we've ever seen. Like after COVID, of course, but now it's like a peak. Like 1 out of 4 kids struggle with anxiety and depression.
Do you think this is because of social media?
Yes, a lot. It has to be a lot.
I really feel like we've got this almost pandemic of social rejection going on. I think we're terrified of social rejection, and now we've got access to the most powerful form of social rejection that we could ever have, right?
Yeah.
I can go online right now and do something controversial and have thousands of people hate me, right? And talk about me negatively and face extreme social rejection. Any of us could. And so on the flip side of that, you've kind of got some people who benefit from that, become very famous, do very, very well, build a whole profile around being controversial and using that. But it's really interesting to me just how careful we are not to be rejected and how that then fuels insecurities. And then as we grow up, our kids watch that.
Yeah. And I think it's this comparison of like from the classroom. So around 8 years old, children start to compare more themselves. This is the first time they feel like they're not as good as someone else. Like, yes, toddlers or preschoolers, they compare themselves, but they don't think someone is better. They just think, okay, this friend is bigger than me or taller than me. But then at this age, they start to think someone is better than me. And actually, the statistics show that by the time they are 8 years old, their self-esteem and confidence just drops 30%.
Wow.
So if we don't do something at this age, then it'll just continue. And if we add social media into the mix, it's just
accelerates it.
All these challenges on TikTok and all this, it's just so easy right now to hide behind the screen and just attack someone else for the way they look or for what they're doing. Or, everyone is just so aware of what am I doing if they see me, if they're recording me. Everything becomes too fake now. There is this poll that they did on 13-year-old girls. 80% of them, they are distorting their image with filters. 13-year-old. They're not even
But their mums are probably doing it too.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. This is the thing. Okay, they take pictures, I know, Snapchat and all these things that make them look different now. If you, by 30 years old, are changing the way you look, what can you expect from them when they're going to be 18, 19, 25. The brain stops developing at 25.
Wow.
So you have a long way.
Yeah.
And you're already starting this.
I don't think we truly know the impact social media's going to have yet. You know, like when I grew up, we didn't have any of that. I had a Nokia 3310.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it would last 2 weeks. I could play Snake on it.
Yeah.
I could make a few phone calls. I had a restriction on how many letters I could type in a text message. You know, there was, I couldn't take a photo with it, right? I need a separate camera for that. The idea of apps and filters and Snapchat and instant this and, it's dopamine hit, ding, dopamine hit. It's, how does that change the evolution of of a child's brain and development as they grow up? And what's the long-term impact of that?
Yeah, and it's even affecting their patience. Like now everything has to be fast. They want to get everything fast because it's this social media and screens and all this like impact directly in the brain and in the dopamine receptors. So it's like
they're addicted.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like this feeling high on their screens, and then this is like why they want everything so fast. Why they have no patience about anything. It's if you see a child comparing to before, like our child, we could wait for things easier, but now it's like they cannot wait for anything, or they must be doing something. They cannot just be sitting down and thinking about something. They must be doing, okay, give me your phone, or give me the iPad, or, this.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's having that constant flow of dopamine hits.
Yeah.
I think almost takes away a lot of life because, to really experience the positive in life, you've got to have the negative as well.
Yeah.
It was, it's interesting for me just how much we chase the positive as human beings, right? I want to be happy, so I'm chasing happiness.
Yeah.
And like I said to you earlier, peace for me is the absence of positive and negative. It's just neutral, just happy where you are, doing what you're doing, not thinking about the future or the past. And so it's like, when we're chasing happiness, it's just fleeting emotion. You experience happiness for a minute, the next minute you might not be happy. And so we're in this culture now of constantly seeking happiness, right? Which obviously is a dopamine hit or whatever. So it's like, whatever that happiness is, whether it's some sort of social appreciation or someone saying something nice about us or some sort of acceptance from somewhere, even if it's online and we don't even know who the person is, and their opinion doesn't really matter in the first place.
Yeah.
We're constantly seeking acceptance. And especially when you're a preteen or a teen, we're being conditioned then to seek that. The hunter-gatherer of modern day society is just seeking dopamine hits.
Yeah. And then also the way we communicate with our children sometimes, and I'm not saying this to make parents like guilty about this, but if we pick them up from school, something easy, before starting asking them how did the test go or did you win, and kind of attacking them with these questions that are going to impact their self-worthiness, just like, I'm so happy to see you. I can't wait for you to tell me the things that you did, instead of just like going straight to, did you win? Because then they think...
What was the outcome of that thing you did? Did you pass or fail?
Yeah, because then for them is this message of, okay, I'm going to make my parents happy only if I win. Instead of like, I'm just happy to see you. And just tell me first I always ask my children, like, we play these two things, one thing. So two things did happen and one thing didn't happen. So this is a way of me of encouraging to talk to me of the way
cool.
they did. So now they want to do 5 things. So, but it's a way of saying what happened without me asking them specific questions. Yeah, so 2 things.
Clever.
Yeah, and it's now for them as a ritual. We do it, and I don't focus on the outcomes on the tests and or whatever. It's like sometimes I just ask them, okay, did you notice someone being kind to someone else? Did you notice someone smiling to the child who was maybe sitting alone? All these things that for me are more important than, yes, academics is important, but for me, I just want to set these elements of like skills and empathy in them. So it's a way of any different way to communicate with them and to actually helping them opening up to me instead. And I also tell my 2 things, 1 thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a way of...
I like that it's with that game, my exercise, it's one of those things where they're going to bring up things they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Whereas you go there and like, did you do this? Did you do that? How was this? You're very specific.
Yeah.
You're talking about things that they're maybe not interested in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're meeting them where they're at. And I think that improves communication.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, parents have an idea of what they want to talk about. Kids have an idea. They're two different things.
Yeah.
But when you do it this way, you meet in the middle, and that builds that communication.
Yeah, and it's more open-ended. It's not just like, did you eat? Did you play? Yes, no. Because the more they grow, the less they want to talk. It's yes, no, that's it. So it's like an open-ended way of like having this conversation.
I think that's a big part of education, isn't it? Like what you said just a second ago about academics versus soft skills, and you know, I look at that like, if you had to pass on 3 bits of knowledge to your kids, you could only give them 3 things, and it could be some sort of education. It could be that, you know, they're very good at maths. It could be they're really good at English. They're really good at physics. They're really good at chemistry, whatever it is, right? Or they're really confident. They've got really good focus. They've got a moral compass. They're very resilient. What 3 things would any parent give for their kids? It wouldn't be anything to do with academics. It would be 3 values or traits or morals, because those are the things that stand the test of time. Those are things that will then guide their decisions. If they want to go down the academic route, they will be able to do that with, you know,
confidence,
right? And so for me, I've always said, you know, character over academics. And we had an amazing podcast guest, Brett, who came in here from Harvard School, headmaster there, and he said, well, I can't say that it's that one's more important than the other. And I said to him, what's more important, character or academics? And he said, well, you know, that one doesn't come without the other. We can have kids with excellent academics and we develop their character. I was like, okay, but do you think that the academic system, the educational system, focuses more on academics or character? He was like, academics. You know, how are schools assessed? Well, they're assessed in their academics, not in the confidence or the resilience of their children, the emotional skills or the soft skills.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said there about our focus in society on developing their soft skills more.
Yeah.
We understand it, right? We understand they're more important. Just ask that simple question, what 3 things do you want to pass on?
Yeah.
You soon get your answer.
Yeah.
Yet society isn't built that way.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just, it's another thing that we have to like educate, and we have to like, I think now we see it more in schools, like we see like the kind week or something, but I think it should be more like all year round.
Yeah.
Have some sort of like, whatever you want to like teach, empathy, kindness, resilience, growth mindset, all these things that you don't see. It's math is important, everything is important, but also this.
It's really hard though. Like I have a lot of sympathy for schools because they've got 20 kids in the class. They're told they need to get these grades. The pressure's there. You know, how are they supposed to, you know, focus on all these incredible soft skills, which are great, when at the top they're being measured by this, and then from the outside the parents are choosing the schools based on academics. And then of course you've got Ofsted or you've got KHDA who are then saying, well, if you don't meet this, then you know. And so it's a real challenge. I've got a lot of respect for teachers. My sister's a teacher, and she could have a terrible year of grades, but the best year of supporting families with going through difficult problems, or you know, who have lost loved ones or getting bullied, and she'll be told that's a terrible year. You did fail as a teacher, right? Whereas you flip that round, hasn't helped them emotionally at all, but gave them good grades. Great job. Yeah. So it's an interesting one. But I have seen it improve a lot. Like when I was younger, academics. Now we've got a softer approach. It is getting there. But it would take time, right? Yeah. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, so I wrote it during the pandemic. I always wanted to write a book. I have another book, but it's like more of a memoir of 25 doctors and me. We're 26 doctors. And we talk about like the difficulties of being a doctor and a mom, living in another country.
Right. Was that based on your experiences in the US?
Yeah. Yeah. And now this one, I was like, okay, I already kind of like know how to write a book. I always wanted to write a book for children. And I said, okay, yoga is what I want to write about. It has positive affirmations, because I love to focus on the growth mindset. And when I was pregnant, I moved to Miami. I didn't know anyone, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to prenatal yoga and meet moms. And I didn't know where to go. And I grew up in Mexico. And in Mexico, it's kind of like here, you have your own insurance and you kind of like talk with your doctor. If you want a C-section, you can have your C-section, or if you want a natural, you will have natural. But then in the US, it's natural unless you have a medical condition. So I was very afraid. I was very scared. Even though I'm a doctor and I know the benefits of having natural delivery, I thought I couldn't do it. I was like, no, this is too much for me. It's too hard. And so when I started going to prenatal yoga, the teacher, she was a doula, and she started using affirmations with us. And she completely shifted my mindset, helped me change my mindset from being afraid of having a natural delivery to trying. I tried even without epidural, nothing, just because I felt confident and I felt that my body knows what's doing.
Right.
So it's going to be easy, it's going to happen. And so I was like, I need to use affirmation with my children.
So even in those last minutes where you were in labor and you're about to give birth, you didn't change your mind.
Yeah, no,
Give me
I was
everything.
like, no, I was like, I had to do it.
Wow, that's amazing. The power of the mind, right?
Yeah,
because there's always that fight or flight moment.
Exactly.
And you can do lots of prep, but when it kicks off,
yeah,
it's you're kind of grabbing for your life jacket. You know what I mean?
Very
You're looking for the exit. You actually change your mind. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the power of the mind. To kind of calm
and I
yourself
had
down.
no idea I could change. This is the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. Do you think you are like this and that's it, or growth mindset? I can change. I can use different tools. So then
this was the turning point for you. Then you were like, wow, this is powerful.
I need affirmations
teach
for
this to my
everything.
kids.
Yeah. And so then I did my children's yoga certification when my daughter was 5 months old, and then I continued my journey with yoga. And during the pandemic, I was like, okay, this is the time I'm going to use to write the book. I wrote the book. I contacted my illustrator and everything. And I finished the book. Then we moved here. I published here last year. And now I'm really happy. I won an award. And it's getting really, it's getting out there and people are really happy. I've been to nurseries and do book readings. I do yoga from babies to 11, 12-year-old children. So it's this feeling of children repeating the affirmation while they're doing the pose. It feels so empowering for them, connecting the body with the affirmation. And it's just to give them this option to grow this self-confidence and to skyrocket their self-esteem and to know that they can do anything they put their mind to. This is what I always tell my children. You can do anything you put your mind to, just focus. Because if I had you without epidural and everything, you can do anything.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
What's the name of the book?
Happy Yogis.
Happy Yogis.
Yeah.
Amazing. And where can everyone at home find that? On Amazon? Or?
Yes. No, it's next month is going to be in all Virgin mega stores in the GCC region. And Kino Kuniya and Magrudy's and all bookstores here, and in the US and Europe it's in Amazon. Nice. Here it's not in Amazon, but only in
It'd be great to have a copy here in our library, so that we can encourage parents to buy it. And, they can have a flick through here, and you take the lessons that you've learned and impart them on their kids, right?
Yeah.
Sandy, if you had to give one piece of advice to parents as we finish up this episode, one final piece of advice to bring the lessons that you've learned to creating a more mindful atmosphere for themselves, what would you say?
I would say that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So first, do things for yourself and to grow your mindset and to be mentally aware of all the things that you can do, like mindfulness practicing. Just start with 1 minute. I'm not asking for 20 or anything, just 1 minute. And then your family will join. I think this is the most asked questions. How can I get my children to do it? It's start with you, because you cannot do anything. Whatever you want to teach your children, if you're depleted, if you're burnt out, then you won't be able to teach anything to them. So I think it's just start with you. And then you can teach your children anything.
Brilliant advice. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Seb. Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed today's Warrior Academy podcast episode. We're going to keep creating these episodes because I know that so many parents find them useful or get insights or get ideas about how to develop their child's character. But it all comes down to the 3 C's: confidence, conduct, and concentration. So if you want to get a deep insight into the levels of confidence your child has, the level of concentration they have, or the level of conduct they have, so that you can actually put a score next to it and then work towards increasing those scores like we do in the Warrior Academy, then I'd love to invite you to fill in the Breakthrough Area Assessment. It takes about 5 minutes of your time, and you will get a personalized PDF report on your child's 3 C's. To access the Breakthrough Area Assessment and find out your child's 3 C's score, all you need to do is go to www.breakthrougharea.com.